Hello everyone and welcome back to the Denver Broncos franchise. In the last episode, we got our playoff hopes crushed by the Kansas City Chiefs and are now on to our offseason. So this episode is just going to be kind of a recap of season 3 and sort of getting us prepped for the offseason live stream, which by the way, will be this Saturday. I haven't completely decided which time, but I think it's going to be 2 p.m. Eastern this coming Saturday. But anyway, let's get into the recap. Of course, we just lost to the Chiefs, so we're going to go ahead and advance until we figure out who wins the Super Bowl, and then we'll look at stats and all that after that. So next week. So if we take a look at the playoff bracket now, the Bengals did beat the Colts. So it's Bengals Chiefs in the AFC Championship, and then the Giants, who are the 7 seed, have upset the 1 seed now. So they've beat the 2 seed and the 1 seed to get here, and we'll face the Eagles in Philadelphia to see who makes the Super Bowl. Obviously nothing going on for us this week since we were eliminated, so we'll go ahead and advance again, and we'll see who made the Pro Bowl. The Giants, on their Cinderella run, have made it to the Super Bowl and will face off against the Bengals, who have upset the 1-seeded Chiefs. The Giants, known for their Cinderella runs, of course, beating the Patriots 2 times during Tom Brady's tenure. We'll see if they can beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I'm actually curious about that Giants roster. Let's take a look. The Giants, of course, still have Saquon Barkley, who's up to a 99. Dexter Lawrence is a 99. Andrew Thomas is up to a 96. Kayvon Thibodeau. Their quarterback is still Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has just made a Super Bowl in this series of Madden. That is insane. Wide receivers are Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, and Wan'Dale Robinson, so still terrible at the wide receiver position, or at the very least not good. Tight end is Darren Waller, so still solid there, although he's definitely regressing at 32. Of course, Andrew Thomas is the left tackle. Their offensive line is pretty weak, honestly. Like, Evan Neal isn't even up to an 80 yet. Left end is Boogie Basham. Leonard Williams is still here. Dexter Lawrence, Azeez Ojulari, Bobby Okereke, and Isaiah Simmons, Kayvon Thibodeau, Deontay Banks, Adoree Jackson. This is definitely not a Super Bowl winning team, I would say. They are on a bit of a Cinderella run. Hey, Enrique Gabriel, that was a guy we almost drafted. We can take a look at who the Pro Bowlers are, and for quarterbacks, it's Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Desmond Ridder, and Justin Herbert. Dennis Colbert did not make it, unfortunately. Halfbacks, you've got Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, I assume, Nick Chubb, Kenneth Walker, Derrick Henry. Fullbacks are something pleasant. I don't know who that is. Kyle Juszczyk, Levette, Gresham. There's your first Bronco on the list. Chester Truman is the wide receiver 1 for the AFC. No surprise there. And if you're curious about any of the other players, we'll scroll down the list. Feel free to pause and take a look. I will keep my eye out for any Broncos players I might see, but who knows, I might miss them as well. There's Quinn Miners. He made the Pro Bowl as the right guard 2, which is fantastic to see. We'll just keep scrolling down the list. I'm still not seeing... I really thought that Zach Allen would make it as a D tackle. He had a great year, especially in terms of TFLs, but did not make it. And we've got no other blitzers that made it. Did we have a middle linebacker make it? No. I thought maybe Drew Sanders would be a Pro Bowler. He is not. And it looks like we may not even have a corner as a Pro Bowler, as PS2 did not make the Pro Bowl. So we only have the 2 Pro Bowlers, or excuse me, 3 Pro Bowlers. We've got the fullback, the right guard, and the wide receiver. I stand corrected. Tanner Brown made the Pro Bowl as a kicker again, but we don't really count that. It's so easy to kick in this game. And our punter also made the Pro Bowl, Riley Dixon. So we are officially to Super Bowl week. There is yearly award winners. This is important for us. Patrick Mahomes won the NFL MVP. Dennis Colbert was 8th. I'm actually shocked to see that Chester Truman not even on the list for NFL MVP. He was insane this year. Coach of the year is Arthur Smith. That makes me want to vomit. In the AFC, Offensive Player of the Year is Chester Truman. He beat out the MVP Patrick Mahomes for that, so congrats to Chester. No other Broncos on the list. Depoy is TJ Watt. No Broncos on the list here either. Offensive Rookie of the Year, as I mentioned in the last episode, was going to be Dennis Colbert. It was basically guaranteed. He had a fantastic rookie season. We had a couple guys with good rookie seasons. Jay Stewart really came on strong in the second half of the year. I'm actually surprised to see Jerry Perry here. He did not get very involved at all this season, but had a couple decent games. Defensive Rookie of the Year is Braden Mullins. Quincy Walls ended up finishing 6th. Best QB, of course, Patrick Mahomes. Dennis Colbert down here in 6th. Best running back is Jonathan Taylor. Neither of the two Broncos running backs are on the list. Best wide receiver, Chester Truman, of course, no shocks there. Best offensive lineman is Trey Smith. And we've got Zion Johnson, who finished the season injured, as the 9th offensive lineman. Best defensive lineman is Ed Oliver. Wow, I guess really Zach Allen must not have had a good year. He's not even on the list of best AFC defensive linemen. Best linebacker is TJ Watt. Again, no Broncos. Best defensive back is Sauce Gardner, and Quincy Walls is way down here. Down here for PS2, I guess. I think they really just favor interceptions, and PS2 did not have a lot of interceptions this year, but he did have a ton of pass breakups. Best kicker is Eddie Pinheiro, which is interesting considering Tanner Brown is the one who made the Pro Bowl. And in the NFC, we'll go through these really quick. Jalen Hurts gets Opoy. Dre Greenlaw gets Defensive Player of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year is Tevin Mann of the Buccaneers. Defensive Rookie of the Year is Brandon Avery of the Seahawks. Best quarterback is Jalen Hurts, of course. Best running back is Aaron Jones, and then Bijan Robinson. Best wide receiver is Tyler Lockett, who continues to do very well despite going up in age. I think he led the NFL in touchdowns. I think that was Chester actually, but I want to say he was 2nd. Best offensive lineman, Chris Lindstrom. Best defensive lineman, Micah Parsons. Best linebacker, Rashawn Gary, and then Byron Young. Sidney Brown is the best DB, and then the best kicker is Bobby Edmonds. We've got a few players to upgrade during this Super Bowl week. One of them is Chester Truman, probably because he won an award. He is quite the player already, and really it's all about route running at this point. He's pretty good at everything else. He needs a release, he needs route running, and those are really the big ones for him. Let's go into deep threat. I hope he gets a medium route running upgrade from this, but mostly I'm looking for release. Gets 1 awareness, 1 catch in traffic, 2 deep route running, 1 juke move, 1 medium route running, and 1 release. Pretty good upgrade for Chester Truman. He's a true 87 overall now. He actually got 2 upgrades, which is cool to see. I need to get his medium route running up, but none of these focus on medium route running. You kind of just have to hope. Let's go into physical, get the catch in traffic and the release up, hopefully. Gets 2 awareness, 2 catch in traffic, 1 jumping, and 1 release. He's up to a true 88 overall now. And Dennis Colbert gets an upgrade. He should be superstar dev now, and he is. Because he earned Rookie of the Year, he gets superstar dev, which is actually massive for Dennis. So he's playing up to an 81 overall. He's a true 78 currently, and I'd like to get his play action better, but none of these really focus on play action, so we'll just go improviser, see what upgrades that gives us. It's only 2, 1 break sack and 2 throw act deep. Interesting. Well, let's see who wins this Super Bowl. I'll advance the week again, and we'll see if it's the Bengals or the Giants. Does Danny Dimes get a Super Bowl victory? We take a look at the season recap. It's the Bengals. They put an end to the run of the Giants and take the victory 24-21. The Bengals finally get their Super Bowl win. That is their first one. And the Super Bowl MVP, middle linebacker Cole Stockton, is the Super Bowl MVP. I really expected it to be Joe Burrow. Most of the time it's a quarterback, but not this time. Bengals 24-21 over the Giants. Now let's get into that bread and butter. Let's get into the stats for this season. Dennis Colbert finished with 4,112 yards, 40 touchdowns to 13 interceptions, but only 55% completion percentage, which is really, really bad. We need to get that up for sure. Took 22 sacks on the season. Michael Stockton was absolutely horrendous as a backup. I think that we probably move on from him. Rushing, Tajay Spears had 825, and so did Javonte Williams. Both of them were honestly good this year at different parts of the season. I thought Tajay Spears was incredible for the first half of the season, and then I thought Javonte was incredible for the second half of the season. And, you know, if this were one workhorse running back, they would have had like 1,600 yards. So it's not like we're not running the ball. It's just the fact that we're almost a completely split backfield between these two, that they're just not getting to 1,000 yards. Jaleel McLaughlin didn't play a lot, but did finish with 108 yards. Dennis Colbert had 96 yards rushing, and Roshan Johnson, who we added late in the season, had 70. Receiving, Chester Truman, the only 1,000-yard receiver on this team. 84 catches, 1,720 yards, and 17 touchdowns. 20.5 per reception, 101.2 yards per game for Chester. Rashad Winters, who honestly regressed pretty substantially as a wide receiver, finished with 700 yards. I'm tempted to put him back as a tight end, but I just think that Jay Stewart has a higher ceiling as a tight end, and Rashad Winters has a higher ceiling as a wide receiver. So I feel like the pivot made sense, but Winters probably needs like another year before he's really that good as a receiver. So we might look to get somebody in free agency to take over wide receiver 2, and he can be the wide receiver 3. But Jay Stewart, who didn't play really the first half of the season, we were waiting for for him to get his development up a little bit. Finally did start playing and was very good for us. Quite a few drops, if I remember correctly, but honestly was pretty good. 40 receptions, 571 yards, and 5 touchdowns for him. Zay Jones barely played in the back half of the season, but had 478 yards. Marvin Mims has just been a real disappointment this entire series. I think it's time for us to move on from him. I think we're going to be trading him away this offseason. Jerry Perry, 17 catches, 225 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Javonte Williams had 209 yards receiving, and Spears had 82 yards receiving. Daniel Truman, the little brother of Chester Truman, had 56. Gresham, the fullback, had 38. Roshan had 31, all in one catch. Jaleel had 25. Marcus Dickens had 25, and Riley Davis had 1. Defensively, Justin Reed was a pretty good free agent acquisition. It's just a shame Madden treats safeties really poorly. So Justin Reed, who I think is honestly a really good safety, played kind of bad at times just because Madden, it just is brutal on safeties. I don't really know how to explain it, but good safeties play bad, and I think that was the case a lot of the time for Justin Reed, but he was a very sure tackler for us, so I'll take that. Drew Sanders, the second tackler on the team, with 95. Devin Bush had 94. Dante Wake with 90. Amari Mathis had 75 despite not playing a lot of the season, which is pretty crazy. I did mention that he gets a ton of tackles when he's on the field. Cameron Bynum 74, Pat Surtain 70, Eric Stevenson 66. If we look at TFL, Zach Allen had 19. Baron Browning had 16 despite missing, I think, 4 games this season. Is there a way I can see his games played? Played 14, so he missed 3 games this season, and he still finished with 16, with second on the team in TFLs, and I believe he was first on the team in sacks. Devin Bush had 15, Khalil Mack 13, Drew Sanders 11, Dante Wake 8, Baptiste 8, Cooper 5, Benito 5, Jail Skinner 5. Jail Skinner had 5 TFLs, and he only had 20 total tackles on the season. That's pretty insane. I think he might deserve a little bit more playing time. Yeah, Baron Browning did lead the team, 8.5 sacks. Zach Allen had 6, Khalil Mack 5, Devin Bush 3, Drew Sanders 2.5, Jonathan Cooper 2.5, PS2 2, Benito 1.5, Wazarike 1.5, Dante Wake had 1, Baptiste 1, Walls 1, Tranquil 1, Robertson 1, Muma 1, and Jail Skinner had a half a sack. I want to say that this was a really kind of down season in terms of sacks. Yeah, it was. Baron Browning finished with 16.5 sacks last season, although he obviously did play the full season last season, but 3 games being the difference between 8.5 and 16.5 doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's just been a down year, I think, for Baron Browning. We definitely need another edge rusher opposite him. I thought Khalil Mack would be that a little bit, but I think he had regressed too much. This is also a down year for us in terms of interceptions. We had a ton of interceptions the year before. I want to say PS2 had 10 last season, only 3 this year. Quincy Walls had 4, Justin Reed 2, Drew Sanders 2, Mathis 2, Stevenson 2, and Cameron Bynum 1. We only had 2 forced fumbles all year, 1 Drew Sanders and 1 from Baron Browning. If we look at who led the NFL in these various stats, Pat Mahomes led in yards by over 300 to the guy in second, which is Dak Prescott. 4,796, just under 4,800, 47 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, 74% completion percentage. Absolutely disgusting numbers from Patrick Mahomes. He also led in touchdowns. Joe Burrow second with 40, and Dennis Colbert had 40 as well, tied for second. Mario Haywood led the NFL in interceptions. He was the second rookie quarterback taken by obviously our rivals, the Raiders. Had a terrible season, really bad. Baker Mayfield threw for 20 interceptions after winning a Super Bowl a season ago. Jared Goff had 19, Jackson 18, Richardson 17, Howell 15, Mac Jones 15, Prescott 14, Love 14, Stroud 14, and then finally Dennis Colbert at 13. So the interception numbers in Madden this year are very high, like absurdly high, I would say, in the simulation, but not really a lot I can do about that. In terms of quarterbacks who actually played the majority of the season, it is Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow who had the least amount of interceptions with 4 each. Jalen Hurts also only had 4. Rushing, Jonathan Taylor nearly 1,900 yards. He led the way, and then it was Aaron Jones, Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris. A lot of big time runners up here at the top. Lots of really good running backs in the NFL. So many 1,000-yard rushers. DeAndre Watkins, the rookie for the Bills, barely hit it with 1,006. Aaron Jones led with touchdowns with 20. Jonathan Taylor had 18, Robinson 16, Gibson 16, Eckler 15, Henry 14. Receiving, Chester Truman, the #1 receiver in the NFL by a lot, nearly 400 yards ahead of CeeDee Lamb, 1,700 yards and 17 touchdowns, 84 catches, so did not win the Triple Crown because there's a couple of guys here that have over 100. In fact, Travis Kelce led with 103 and CeeDee Lamb had 101, and Chester led in touchdowns as well with 17 to Lockett's 16. So like I said, Lockett gets a ton of touchdown grabs, but Chester with one more. Defensively, Matt Milano and two other guys had 140 tackles, including a second-year middle linebacker, Cole Stockton. This is the Super Bowl MVP, Cole Stockton. Only star dev, only an 80 overall, and he's only playing up to an 80 overall, but he looks to be a really good player. He'll probably earn superstar dev after getting Super Bowl MVP. CJ Mosley also had 140, Pratt 139. Myles Garrett led with 26 TFLs, at Oliver 25, Parsons 25, TJ Watt 24, Vita Vea 24, Williams 23, and 14 sacks is the #1 sack leader in the NFL. That's Rashawn Gary. So a down year for sacks in general this season, as 16.5 from Baron Browning last season would have led the NFL this season, but instead it's only 14. Interceptions, Dre Greenlaw had 7, which led the way. Deron Bland with 5, Jermaine Pratt with 5, Brisker with 5, Gardner 5, Leonard 5, a lot of guys with 5. And then eventually we get down to the group where Quincy Walls should be in the 4s. Drew Sanders, second in the NFL, tied with a bunch of guys though, for pass deflections, had 14 pass breakups this season. And on to team stats. Offensively, the Broncos were 3rd, which doesn't make a lot of sense because the offense really struggled at times. This was a sliders thing. Early on, especially, our sliders were whack. 30.1 points per game, pretty insane. But yeah, we were a really good offense according to this, especially through the air, which I guess is fair because Dennis Colbert had an insane rookie season. Rushing, we're probably one of the bottom teams. Actually, it looks like we're pretty middle of the pack in terms of rushing yards, maybe bottom middle, but not bad. Points per game, the Chiefs had 31.7, we had 30.1. We had 43 passing touchdowns, 15 rushing touchdowns. Chiefs offense really the only one that could outscore us, and they did it 3 times. By the way, the Saints averaged 15.2 points per game. That is horrible. Defensively, this is where we are probably going to be bottom of the barrel. Falcons had the best total defense this season. We had the worst by nearly 1,000 yards total. Our pass defense in particular, 5,121 yards, which is the worst by over 1,000 yards to the next team. In terms of rush defense, we were actually a top 10 rush defense, so not bad at all. We did definitely allow the most points, that I am confident in, because we cannot get a low scoring game to save our lives. We did come 2nd in the NFL in sacks despite the low sack totals, and we were top 10 in interception totals as well. Conversion rates, the Bengals lead the way in 3rd down percentage with 57%. We were probably a terrible 3rd down team. We were 43% on 3rd down is really bad, bottom 4 in the NFL. We were also only 50% on 4th down, which probably isn't too bad, but it's still bottom 10, bottom 12-ish. Apparently we didn't go for a 2-point conversion even once in the regular season this season, as we were 0 for 0. The best team in terms of 4th down percentage was the Packers, and a bunch of teams obviously tied for 2-point percentage, but the Packers 5 of 5. In terms of red zone efficiency, we were dead last, 49%, and we had the most attempts by a lot, so that's a lot of points we left on the board. Defensively, also dead last in red zone points percentage. So when it comes to being in the red zone, whether we're on offense or we're on defense, we suck. We were #1 in the NFLs in penalties against. This is impossible because Madden just doesn't call penalties. I have like every penalty slider at 99. Penalties just not a thing when you user the games in Madden. Obviously, all the other teams have a ton of penalties because they're all simmed. Turnovers, let's see where we rank in turnover differential. We were -2, so near even, not bad, although -2 being that we were a over 500 team is not great. And that pretty much does it for all of the stats this season. Those are all the player stats. We can take a look at retirements really quick. Russell Wilson retired. He's gone. He's out of the league. Kevin Byard, Jamal Williams, Jordan Jenkins, Michael Burton. Some big names here. Devontae Parker, Micah Hyde, D-Hop is finally retiring. Taylor Lewan, Garrett Bowles, former Bronco, is retiring. Lane Johnson, Teron Armstead, Corey Lindsley, Zach Ertz, Marcus Peters, a lot of big names retiring. So let me kind of tell you guys my plan for this offseason. As much as I think that we could try to blame Dennis for his poor play at the end of the season, he has superstar dev. He's only 24 years old. He's going to get a lot better and a lot quicker, especially now that he has the superstar dev. I do think that he's the quarterback of the future. Michael Stockton will probably be off the team. He was terrible as a backup. We need somebody that can come in and provide consistency if Colbert does go down with an injury. In terms of halfback, I think that one of Javonte Williams or Tajay Spears is probably probably going to go in a trade so that we can get something of more value at a different position. I think either of these two guys could easily be a workhorse back. I don't think we need to do a split backfield anymore. So I think it's time to move on from one of them. I personally want to keep Javonte Williams a little bit more than Spears. I think he fits the play style more. And I think that he had a better season, even though he missed a few games. There is that injury concern with him. Wide receiver, obviously Chester Truman is the guy going forward. I think Marvin Mims is going to be traded away. Rashad Winters, I think, gets demoted to wide receiver 3 probably. And then we look for a true wide receiver 2, somebody around like the 85 overall range, plus hopefully in free agency. But we need somebody to go alongside Chester so that he's not having to do everything. And Rashad Winters can get there eventually. He's just not there right now. And we're sort of in a win now type of mode going forward. Tight end obviously is going to be Jay Stewart, and then we need to find 2 decent backups. I think Riley Davis is probably fine since he's very young. I think our offensive line will stay mostly the same. We may look to make a splash in free agency. We have a decent offensive line. I would love to get rid of Mike McGlinchey just because he's so expensive potentially. Baron Browning, of course, will stay. Khalil Mack likely gone, but we do need a good right end to replace him, and I don't think that is Nick Bonito at this point. D tackle Zach Allen is a guy I really like, but he is up to 29 years old, so we may look to get a little younger there. I do like JD Robertson, the draft pick we got this season, or last season rather, but he's only normal dev, so he's not going to get a ton better very quickly. Uwazurike probably needs to go. Jermaine Stewart is just depth, and so is Jacoby Brazil. I think it's probably time to upgrade from Devin Bush. He's an 80 overall. I don't really think he's been cutting it. I think he's a good player. I think we could do better. I especially think that we need to upgrade it right outside linebacker. I like Avery Baptiste. He's a guy I drafted. I'm a fan of him. He has star dev back. He's just not good enough for a team that's trying to win right away. Corners, we desperately need a true CB2. Tyreek Stevenson has been a huge disappointment ever since we picked him up. So I'd love to get another guy mid to high 80s to be the CB2. Damari Mathis has been good in the slot, and I think Quincy Walls has some potential as well there. Justin Reed is going to stay. I think he's been great, although he's probably about to start regressing. And Dante Wake will always be on the team in some role, whether it's at linebacker, corner, safety. He can kind of do it all. Strong safety, we definitely need to improve. I like JL Skinner. I think I will be keeping him as a backup, but I think Cameron Bynum probably needs to go, and we should look to upgrade at strong safety. But if you didn't know, we have almost no draft picks this season, or at least none in the early rounds. Our earliest pick is round 4, pick 109 from New England. We have a 5th, 3 6th, and 2 7ths. So we have a lot of late round guys, but nothing early unless we decide to make some trades. But anyway, we can go into scouting for the off-season live stream, which, like I said, will be this Saturday. Be on the lookout for that. I will make it a public live stream, so you should be able to see it on the channel. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If I missed anything in terms of the recap, if there's anything you wanted to see that I didn't show, let me know, and I will show it before we start the off-season during the stream. But like I said, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys during the stream this Saturday.